Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm a 737 pilot and a member of PMDG's tech team. Welcome to the walkaround on the Boeing 737. In this video I'm going to give you detailed information on how to conduct the walkaround, what to check, and at the meantime we'll also have a look at the brand new 737-900ER. So, on the walkaround we are basically checking the following things. We make sure that the surfaces and structures are clear, not damaged, not missing parts, and there are no fluid leaks. All entry doors, service doors, cargo doors and surrounding fuselage are not damaged. The tires are not too worn, not damaged, and there is no tread separation. The gear struts are not fully compressed. The engine inlets and tailpipes are clear, the exhaust panels are secured, the fan cowls are latched, the exterior, including the bottom of the nacelles, is not damaged, and the reverses are stowed. The doors and exhaust panels that are not in use are latched, the probes, vents and static ports are clear and not damaged, the skin area adjacent to the pitot probes and static ports is not wrinkled, the antennas are not damaged, and the light lenses are clean and not damaged. Now, there are some additional procedures in cold weather operations, but for that, have a look into the winter operations tutorials. The exact route, how the walkaround is conducted, is clearly defined by Boeing, so let's head out and follow just that. Be aware that if it is dark, a flashlight is mandatory. So we start right in the front by checking the different probes that we have on our airplane. We have the TAT probe up here in the front, and then looking forward we have the angle of attack vane, and we have the captain's pitot and static probe. Now, when you are over here, also have a general look at the forward fuselage and the flight deck windows to make sure that no damage has occurred, since this is a likely area for a bird impact should a bird strike occur. Now, we make sure to check the probe sensors, ports and vanes, and all the door and exhaust panels. From here on, let's head over to the front and check the radome for any sign of possible damage, be that from a bird strike or maybe from some hail or bad weather. And at this moment, it is also a good idea just to take a little bit of a step back and just have a general look at the overview of your airplane. Okay, from here on we can head forward into the nose wheel, and in here we are going to check the tires and wheels. So check the tires for any possible sign of damage, be sure to check the wheels for any possible sign of damage, check the gear strut and the doors themselves. Check all the actuators and the steering mechanisms that we have in here. Make sure that the nose gear steering lockout pin is installed as needed. And finally, it is always a good idea to have a look into the steering cables and mechanism that we have over here. Our two cables. And from here on they're running into the actuators down here. So make sure that that entire assembly is not damaged. Finally, we check the snubbers on the top of the nose wheel, which are basically those that you can see over here and over here. This is what causes this sound after wheel retraction, because they basically are some rubber devices that stop the nose wheel from spinning. And that concludes the check of the nose wheel. What is recommendable to do as well is to have a look down here at the side and make sure that there is no damage or leakage of any oil over here on the sides. Okay. From there on, have a quick look into the E&E bay door. And then we come up to the side. Once again, we have the probes and the ports to check. So down here we have once again the AOA vane on the right hand side. We have the auxiliary pitot static port, and we have the FO's probe. Also, we have our emergency exit latch for the first officer's sliding window up here. Make sure that that one is properly latched as well. Down here is our external power access panel, and as we can see, the external power is currently plugged in. There is a light up here indicating whether it is currently in use, and then we also have the interphone and the pilot call buttons. Now those up here are not buttons, but they're actually a jack for the headset. So in here, if you plug into the flight interphone, you can hear everything that's being said in the cockpit, provided that the interphone is turned on. And the service interphone is the interphone that is in use for the flight attendants. This one is not typically used, so the flight interphone is the interphone typically used. If the one right door is closed, we would have a look at it over here as well. Make sure that it is flush with the fuselage. And then we can continue on. Now, over here we have our static ports. So we have the top side, and then we have the lower port as well. And down here we have this little green disc, which we can see right here, which is the oxygen pressure relief disc. And this one has to be green and in place, otherwise there is something wrong with the oxygen system. From here on, continue along the fuselage, make sure there is nothing damaged. Quickly check that the wing light is not damaged. And then we can continue all the way up here. And up here we have the rum air deflector door. And we want to have a quick look in here to make sure that there is no bird sticking in there, because this might be an area where a bird might enter, either in case of a bird strike, or because we might be sitting on the ground for a long time, and this is an area where a bird might find protection, for example, from heavy rain or winds. So this is an area where birds might enter, so do have a look in there. And if you are carrying a flashlight during the daylight, and always at night, just quickly have a look inside to make sure that there is nothing inside there as well. Next up, we'll have a look in the leading edge flaps and the landing lights. Make sure that there is no damage up here, that the glass is okay, and that the light bulbs are looking good. And have a look at the leading edge flap as well, to be sure that there is no damage up here. Also check if there are any feathers sticking out, because if you had a bird strike, there is a good chance that some feathers might be sticking out over here. From there on, we continue towards the engine, and we start from the back. Make sure that the thrust reverser lockout pins are not looking out, so if there is something sticking out in red over here, then that is the thrust reverser lockout pins. Then we continue along the access doors over here, make sure they are properly latched. And finally we can go ahead a little bit further and have a look into the engine intake itself. Make sure that the acoustic lining is not damaged, that is the part we see over here. And damage is likely to occur to this, especially when there are people sitting inside the engine intake for taking photos for social media. So don't do that, guys. Only your airline CEO may do it for PR purposes. Check that the engine intake and the fan are not damaged. And over here we actually check every single fan blade. So every single one of them is being checked. It is very likely that eventually you are going to find something over here, that there might be a little damage. For example, from a little rock that might have been ingested on the runway. And also have a look behind the fan blades into the inlet guide vanes, because over here you might as well find some signs of a bird. I did already have a totally clean fan, but then on the intakes, internally, I could find a feather. And it turned out that we actually had a bird strike into the engine core. So be very careful when you check that. Then again, be sure to check the engine oil access door. It's closed and latched. And once again, we have some thrust reversal lockout pins over here and over here to make sure that they are properly latched. From here on, we are going to continue along the airplane's leading edges. This, by the way, is the refueling panel that we can see up here. So make sure that there is no damage anywhere over here. And then we head all the way to the outside. Now, This one over here is an overflow vent for the fuel tanks, so if they are pumping too much fuel into the vent, then this is where the fuel would come out. One exists on either side of the airplane, and especially on the left-hand side of the plane. This can be quite dangerous if passengers are walking underneath the wing and then a fuel spillage occurs. This is where it would come out, and you really don't want your passengers to get spilled with fuel, do you? So, from here we are going to check the navigation lights, make sure that both bulbs are working, so we can see we have one here and one here, and we need to make sure that both of them are actually working. One is allowed to be inoperative, however, that has to be written down on the hold item list, and then the airplane may be dispatched by the minimum equipment list. From here on, we continue around the wing, check the split skimitar winglets if installed, and then here in the back we once again have two navigation lights. Again, one is permitted to be inoperative, but it has to be in the books. And then we have our two static wick dischargers on the trailing edge of the wing. And we need to make sure that both are actually there. If one is missing, once again, maintenance can dispatch the aircraft under the minimum equipment list, however, it does have to be in the books. Okay, continuing along the trailing edge of the wing, make sure that all the flap fairings are not damaged. And I've actually had a case where that entire back part of the flap fairing was missing. And you can imagine how I looked when that was just not there. Now, that was in the books, but nonetheless, it's something that just looked really strange. Coming on to the landing gear, we once again check that the wheels themselves are not damaged. As we can see, we check that there is no leakage of any fluid, especially brake fluid, and then we have a look down into these pins that we can see over here. And those pins are the brake wear indicator pins, and they indicate to us how new the brakes are or how long they can still be used. Basically, when the brakes are being used, those pins are being used up, and eventually those pins will get flushed with the metal over here. And that is the point where these brakes need to be replaced. Also, it is a good idea just to check how warm this entire area is after a flight, because this might indicate the need for additional brake cooling. In the wheel well, it's quite dark at the moment, so we can't really see a lot. But in here, basically check that there are no leaks, and if you are really looking into the systems, which we can't see right now, that is unfortunate. But the important thing over there is to check the hydraulic reservoirs to make sure that they are actually filled, and to check the fire extinguisher bottles on the other sides to make sure that they have some pressure indicating. Also, have a look into this little pin over here. This is basically a pin that would get damaged if there is any damage to the wheel during retraction. And if this pin gets damaged, then the entire landing gear is going to stop retracting to prevent a damaged landing gear from entering the wheel well bay and causing further damage to the systems in there. From here we continue on to the back. Check the emergency exit lights over here. Check the mid-exit door as applicable. Note that this is only there in the 900 ERs and on the Max 8200. And of course the Max 9 and 10. Check the aft cargo hold. Make sure that the pogo stick is actually in there. And from there we continue toward the back of the plane. And here is a lot of stuff to check. So let's start with the upper door. The door is closed, and have a close look at the door handle over here. This one has to be flush with the door itself. Once we've checked that, we will have a look into the outflow valve, make sure that this is open, and it's always a good idea to have a quick look inside there to make sure that there is no damage inside. From there on, we are going to check the emergency exit light, make sure there is no damage over there, and then we'll check the APU inlet area and make sure that there is no damage over here as well. I did already have the luck to find a bird sticking right up here on the inlet door, and, well, luckily for me, we could call it a day afterwards, as they had no spare parts and the plane was grounded. Also, as we are walking along the side, have a look into the elevator field probe on the right hand side of the rudder up here to make sure that there is no damage up there. Now going ahead, we check the leading edge of the stabilizer, and what you will notice is that a lot of 737s will have some markers painted in front of the stabilizer. Now, if you have a livery that has those painted, then do have a look, because with the stabilizer in the standard position on the ground, which is 4 units, you should have a black marker on the fuselage in front and then one on the leading edge of the stabilizer to verify that the stabilizer is actually in the correct position. Now this particular livery doesn't have it, not all liveries do, so nothing to worry about. As we are passing along the stabilizer, check that you find 3 static wick dischargers on the side over here. And as we are walking around, have a look at the rudder as well. You have 3 static wick dischargers on the back and 1 on the top of the rudder. So 1, 2, 3, 4. A little bit hard to see from here. Can see it a little bit better here, but it's really tiny to see in the simulator. We go along to check the APU exhaust and check the strobe light at the back. And then we go slightly forward to check for any possible damage on the tail skid. Now, the tail skid is the position where the airplane would contact the ground in case of a tail strike during takeoff or landing. Make sure that there is no stretch damage anywhere up here, and make sure that you can see that green part of the tail skid up there. From here on, we continue along the other side, which is almost identical to the right hand side already, so I'm going to cut this one short a little bit. And that is pretty much the entire walk around. Now, I'm not going to go into much further detail on the left side of the plane because it is primarily the same thing as it is on the other side. However, there is one thing that I quickly want to show you here, and that is the overflow vent of the fuel tanks. Now, as I said earlier on the other side, this is where fuel would spill out in case the automatics don't stop fueling when the tank is full. So you can see how this is pretty much the area where a passenger would walk underneath the wing if you let them. So be sure that you actually guide the passengers around the wings. Okay, from here on, that is pretty much it, and we can head back into the airplane once we've checked the engine up here. By the way, I don't know if you guys noticed, but there is actually something that we should have found here, and that is that the back of the engine strut up here is actually showing all black. Now, these often show some signs of black, especially on the lower part up here where the exhaust is coming out of the engine, but this entire part shouldn't be that black, so this is an indication that a fire might have occurred in the past, and this is definitely something we would report to maintenance. So, I'm glad that you guys actually had a look during the walk around, because it's definitely been worth it. Last thing, when you're getting to the front of the plane, if you have an aircraft that is equipped with an air stair, then you would find the access panel somewhere up here, so be sure that that is actually closed and properly latched. Rumors say that some ramp agents have already received an aircraft that had this door open after a flight. Right, and that is the walk around of our 737 completed. I hope that you've learned something today, and if you did, then do let me know in the comments what was new to you. As always, like, comment and subscribe, and if you do want to support the channel, you can consider becoming a channel member now, where you are going to get some exclusive new content, like early access to new videos, some phone wallpapers, and in first class, actually the ability to request new videos. Thank you very much for joining, and I'm looking forward to see you all again, hopefully very soon.